it reflects our organization's mission to engage in dialogue with the community to find a collective solution towards ending the practice of female genital mutilation or cutting, or what is known as khatna within the community itself. And we do this through dialogue, education, collaboration, really based on community involvement. And we really recognize that dialogue needs to begin within the communities when we're going to address any type of social norm change. And storytelling is this powerful tool that you can use to start that dialogue, start that conversation just amongst a few people at a time, and then have that grow into larger numbers as well. And so we really focused on the idea of connecting and bringing this up within the community in general. But just a little history in general. For decades, there's actually been many disparate attempts by the Dalibor women to talk about this practice. In 1994, Rihanna Godali wrote a piece called All for Izzat, the Practice of Female Circumcision, and it was a small case study done in India. And since that time, there have been other voices calling for action through articles, magazines, blog posts, all done by survivors of this practice as well. And Sahiyo, there's 5 co-founders, and we've all at various times been speaking about this as well. For example, myself, in 2010, I was going through a Master of Social Work program, and so for my thesis, I did a study called Understanding the Continuation of Female Genital Cutting within the United States. After that, I started writing about the stories that I heard and also the experiences and just why is this continued here in the United States specifically, since there was federal legislation that was passed, how could it continue? Why did communities feel they needed to do it in secret? What were the consequences or any emotional, physical kind of trauma that might be related to it? And one of the things that I wrote was published by the Imagining Equality Project, which was a joint venture from the Global Fund for Women and the International Museum of Women. Through that, I was connected with a few of the other women who are the co-founders of Sahiyo as well, and some of the work that they've done. One of the women, Priya Goswami, did a documentary on the practice of khatna, or female genital cutting, in India in 2012 called A Pinch of Skin. We had 3 other women. One of them was a journalist based in India as well who had been talking about this. Another documentarian who had been talking about this openly, and she was working on child abuse issues as well, and then a researcher. And we had all either grown up in the community or we were familiar with the community in this practice. But what we realized was that there were all these small, localized discussions happening in various ways, but we really needed something that, a more formal collaboration, a more formal platform to bring about various voices in one place and to really strengthen this idea of change amongst this practice. So what we first did was, Sahiyo was formally organized last year. Actually, it's been, I think, a year and a half now. And one of the first things we wanted to do was to really bring out that this was something that was much more widespread, and it wasn't this localized incident. It wasn't just something that happened in one part of the world. We knew that it was happening amongst Bora communities worldwide. So we launched an online global survey, and we had over 400 women fill out that survey and telling us about their experiences having undergone this, and they lived in countries from all over the world. Based on that, we realized that people were interested in really talking about this issue, and some people wanted to talk about it in stronger or more public ways. And from that, we launched our platform, our website, including a blog, and invited people to write about their own experiences, how they felt undergoing it. We had stories from women who didn't realize that it happened to them until years later, and once they found out, they were shocked and surprised and were looking for answers. We had stories from people just addressing the issue of the secrecy around the practice and how it was to talk to other members and the challenges to talk to people that maybe were in favor of it, and then also just the relief in being able to talk to other people that felt the same way they felt and might have felt some sort of emotional trauma related to the practice, their fears about their daughters undergoing it and preventing them from happening. And based off of that, we realized that we really wanted to do more educational and collaborative kind of outreach and work. So one of the other public outreach campaigns that we've done is called Each One, Reach One, where we really were encouraging people to talk to even just one person in their community about the practice and share their experiences. And we were hearing these stories. And both privately and publicly, we started hearing these stories about what it was like to talk about it to one other person. And it was really, again, this idea to break the silence around the practice. And then I'm just going to briefly end with one of the other most recent campaigns that Sahiyo has done is, once we started getting all of these stories, we realized we were no longer voiceless and more survivors were talking about it. So a couple weeks ago, we launched a campaign saying, I am Bora. And the idea is that we no longer want to be faceless either. So we invited people who, both within the community and then those that were supporters against the practice, to submit pictures holding placards, which you can see on here. And we had both men and women that were sending us these pictures and explaining why they were against the practice and giving their own reasons. And it was just, it's something we're still getting more and more pictures every day, but that's the start of this work, and I'm happy to talk more about it during the Q&A section too.